So, Caitlin Clark, obviously one of, if not the biggest draw in women's basketball. Obviously the biggest draw in women's basketball. I don't know what we're talking about. One of the biggest draws in basketball. One of the biggest draws in sports right now. And I'm not the only person who's saying this. Bill Simmons has also come out and said something very, very similar. But before we get on to, if you guys are new to the channel, subscribe. We're trying to hit 40k by Christmas. If we can get 39.1k by the end of the day, we will be well on track. We're only 29 off it. But anyway, yeah. So this is what Bill Simmons said about Caitlin Clark.
30 star. Is Caitlin Clark a bigger under 30 star than any under 30 star in the NBA?
By a country mile. The biggest star under 30 in the NBA right now might be Wembanyama. It might be, I'm trying to think. It could be Wemby. It could be Ant. It could be LaMelo. None of them are bigger stars than Caitlin Clark. Absolutely none of them. I think Wemby might be the only one who's in the top 5 in jersey sales. The biggest stars in the NBA are still LeBron and Steph. And honestly, Caitlin Clark might be a bigger star at this point in time than both of them.
Yes.
I think she is.
Absolutely.
Too. Okay.
Yeah.
I don't even think that's a debate.
Her stardom, in a way, it has changed many conversations about sports, I feel like, especially women's sports.
I literally did not care about women's college basketball 10 years ago in any way, shape, or form. So I think some things have moved toward just the quality to play is more fun to watch, but she seems to be some sort of catalyst that is just, it's like before and after, and now we're in the after.
You can say that, but like for before and after, if you've been looking at the numbers when it comes to things like college basketball, when it comes to things like the draft, we're still looking at like the draft lottery. I might talk about this in a video later, being way down on last year for the paid sweepstakes. And then also they had a game on Fox for South Carolina, UCLA, which is the biggest game of the year so far. And I think it was like a quarter of the viewers of when Caitlin Clark played Illinois last year. So it's like, it is different. It is very different where it's like, yes, the after is still greater than the before, but it's still not an equivalent. Like a lot of people think that, oh, Caitlin's gone, the viewers are going to stay, or it's like, some of them will, but like, again, it's a before Clark, and like, this is it talking about in 2021, how the games where Caitlin Clark's, even her like original tournament games were more viewed than anything. But like, that's the reality of that part of it anyway.
Part of it has to do with it's real difficult now for a guy to become famous in basketball at the collegiate level, but it still seems very plausible for a woman to do
well,
that.
This is, everyone's made this point, and it's super important, but you have this history with these women's players in college for 3 years, kind of have a sense of their game. So when they come in the WNBA, you know what they can do.
That is a true one. That's one thing that you never really think about, is because when these rookies come into the NBA, they're not that good. Like outside of, I'm trying to think what rookies in the last 10 years have deserved to be an all-star since 2014. So let's look. 2015 draft, did Kat deserve to be an all-stars rookie? No. 2016 draft, none of the 2017 rookie class was awful. The next year, did Ben Simmons deserve to be an all-star as a rookie? Yes. Did the next year was 2018 draft. Luka, probably. Yeah, I think Luka might have got screwed out of an all-star. 2019 draft, if Zion was healthy, he would have been, but no. Like, the reality is, like, since that period of, like, Simmons, Luka, Zion, we haven't really seen the rookies take over. Like, nobody in that 2020 rookie class was that great as a rookie. Same with 2021. 2022, as good as Paolo was, still, like, was better towards the end of the year, was not an all-star. Wemby, maybe. This year, no. McCain's a revelation, but, like, he's going to slow down. He's good stats, bad team. At this point in time, he's a good stat, bad team guy. And until we can see something different, I think he'll be fine, but I think at the minute it's good stat, bad team. So, in the NBA, there's really not that kind of... A lot of these guys are coming in not as good. And they're not really making a name for themselves in college, so it takes 6-7 years for them to make a name for themselves. And by the time they do, they're still not as good as like your Lukas and your Jokic's who quietly became the best players in the world without really making a name for themselves. Well, Luka did, sorry, like a Jokic or even a Shea to an extent. Like, then you've got, it could be very different if these players were in college for 4 years and college basketball was what it was in the freaking 80s. And everyone's hyped up for all these rookies. We've seen them for years. Like, you see Patrick Ewing after 1 year and you're like, oh my God, like, this guy's going to be insane. You see him playing year after year after year in college, and then suddenly he gets to the NBA and he's a more polished player. Would he be more polished than if he was in the NBA after the first year of college and kept developing? Maybe, maybe not, probably not. But he makes a name for himself, at least in college. So it is an interesting one. Men's college basketball is not what women's college basketball is, even at this point in time. Like Rutgers is an interesting one because they're almost like the Dukes of past, where they get two of the top recruits and they're their two main players and they don't have upperclassmen. Cooper Flagg is an interesting story. You got Edgecombe was doing a bit of everything. But in the women's side for Caitlin Clark, what she did was unheard of. What Caitlin Clark was able to do was unheard of. And the fact is that she came to the pros and was as good as advertised. She was fourth in MVP voting. Like, she was genuinely fourth in MVP voting. And that's only after a, slow start by her standards, figuring out the league. Like, without if you subtract the first 10 games, I think she gets a first place MVP vote. Obviously, you can't subtract the first 10 games, but if there was some weird scenario where there was an MVP of every 10 games, she might win the MVP of the last 20 games of the season. Like, that's how good Caitlin Clark was. And she still is a phenomenon because nobody is let down when they watch Caitlin Clark. Whatever about the first 10 games of the season, even in those first 10, like, everyone talks about how much she struggled. In those first 10 games of the season, she still had the 30-point breakout against the LA Sparks. She still had the game against the Sparks where she ended it by hitting 2 consecutive 30-footers. She still had the 20-something point game against 20-something point games against the Liberty, against the Storm in a really close one, and against the Sun in a really close one. Yeah, there was a bad Liberty game at the start. There was a pretty bad, iffy first game. And then in that first 10, there was one iffy Storm game as well. She was good in one of them. So, like, that's realistically it. And then after that, we saw her play and kind of control everything the first matchup against Angel Reese that people were watching. And get hip checked by Kennedy Carter. We then saw her go and dismantle the Washington Mystics the day she got told that she didn't make the Team USA team. We saw a second half, or like a post-Olympics where she was unbelievable, and like a 5 to 6 games from the 30th of June, which was when she played the Phoenix Mercury, till the All-Star break, she was the best player in the WNBA. So, like, she came out of college, she built a name in college, she's been that good in the WNBA, and it's also a league that's easier to follow in the NBA. Like, it's as annoying as it is that they put games on at the same time, it's very, very, it's very rare you see somebody, he's lost train of thought just there, but, like, she's just that much bigger a draw than everybody else, and she continues to be that big of a draw. Like, and she's going to be that big of a draw next year. The problem, again, with the NBA is, as I was saying, and like lost train of thought, even though they play a bunch of games, it's still only like 3 games a night. You don't have to focus on 10 games a night and every single day. The days off are probably okay for your focus. And if you're a fan of the Fever, you're like, okay, yeah, but they play 40 games. Cool. I don't need to worry too much about some other stuff. The games are quicker. And that's another thing. The games take an hour and 45 minutes. Not 2 hours and 45 minutes sometimes. The games end quicker. It's very rare you see a 20-minute last 2 minutes. The players play harder because they don't have the ability to just one dribble to the freaking basket from the halfway line. The players play harder. So you're now seeing a situation where it's easier to keep track of a team. It's easier to keep track of your favorite players. It's easier to keep track of, like, the league being smaller. And I think the league having 12 teams, there being less games in total, helps. I genuinely think they will never do it, but if the NBA, where you played every team twice, and let's just say, again, they end up bringing 32 teams into the league. They get 2 more expansion teams. That means that you play every team twice, you play every team home and away, and instead of playing 82 games, you play 62 games. I think taking away those 20 games, it means rivalries are still there. You don't play a team on back-to-back nights in 2 different places. You have your 62 games. You only play the team twice. So if you're a home fan, you only get to see this team once, no matter what, instead of potentially seeing them twice. And then cutting the playoffs I like best of 7. Best of 7's cool, but it's like, keep best of 7 for the finals. Best of 5 round 1, best of 5. Best of 5 in the conferences, best of 7 in the finals. Your players play harder, they play less games. Games mean more, rivalries mean more. And your players will play harder if they only play that amount of games. Play teams twice. So, yeah, that's just my opinion on it all. But Bill Simmons, 1000% right. But kind of everything, it's easier to follow a WNBA player. It's easier to follow a player through college. It's actually now easier for a fandom in the women's side because a lot of the problems with the NBA is, again, they play too many games. The players don't play hard enough because there's too many games. They don't build a name in college. None of that's happening in the WNBA. And it's a perfect storm when you add one of the most fun players to watch in all of basketball with that as well.